Hey you guys, Paul Baker here. So I've had a little bit of back and forth with Sleeping Warrior about the scientific method. I initially asked him why he was a flat earther and he said he wasn't. Very strange. And he proceeded to tell me the globe doesn't have any science. So my response to him is in the dark text and his response to me is under that. So there's a few questions I asked him. I'm not going to respond with a comment, I'm going to respond with a video because I think I can explain it better. I just want to smash one of the finest minds that the flat earth have. Sleeping Warrior. Antony Riley. So if they actually manage to debunk the globe model and we go back to a flat earth, Antony Riley will be one of their high ranking scientists, yeah? That's what he'll be. He's telling me, you can easily read it for yourself, that I don't understand the scientific method, and he debunks the claims of a spherical earth on a daily basis. Okay. So I said to him, I understand a large part of astronomy is a guess, but the shape of the world is pretty clear cut. Now what I mean by this is that using the scientific method we have established the shape of the earth, but not only just with the scientific method, with other observations, and testing does verify we are on a globe opposed to a flat earth. Flat earth don't actually have any evidence. They've got nothing at all. All they have is the scientific method. Science is not just to do with the scientific method. It's only a small portion of science. He said astronomy is not science. There are no experimental validated positions in astronomy, as it's all observation based. Modern science has moved on and these observations are used in science. It is science, it's a branch of science, and we'll just have a look here. Okay, astronomy, literally meaning the science that studies the laws of the stars, is a natural science that studies celestial objects and phenomena. It uses mathematics, physics and chemistry in order to explain the origin and evolution. Okay, that is science. He's saying no, it's not. Does he also think science is hijacked? Show me one scientist that disagrees with this. So we'll just go back to that one's debunked. So in this next question I posed to him, it can be modelled perfectly as regards to moon phases and the effects it presents to us. The Selenelion, difficult word to say. He says it's impossible. I concede that we cannot model it because it's basically, the cause of it is refraction. We can't model refraction on a small scale. So he has got a point there, but we've got an explanation for it. And this is it here, it's refraction. We can see in this diagram. This is a great page, Debunking Flat Earth Misconceptions. So I don't think we need to go on any further there. The other issue is that everything, he's saying it cannot be modelled. The eclipses cannot be modelled. He's saying if Earth causes the shadow on the moon, the sun and the moon cannot be in the sky at the same time. It's just not so. Now we've got a simulation here that I can show you guys. It has been modelled and simulated. He's just making stuff up. He's just making stuff up. He also goes on to say, you show how new you are to the topic by claiming this nonsense, I'm afraid. Well, no, I'm not. I've been studying it. I've been studying it for the past year. But for me, what I've studied in relationship to the moon and the earth and the sun and the effects it presents to us cannot happen on a flat earth. Not at all. I've got several videos on my channel showing exactly how solar eclipses work, lunar eclipses. So for me, I concentrate on the moon because it's close. We can model it and simulate it absolutely perfectly. The only thing we can't model is refraction, and we can't. So I said to him, maybe you could study the definitions related to the variables within an experiment a bit closer. He's told me that I don't understand it. Right, okay. Anyway, so following on to that, I'll just back my statement up. You certainly don't have to wiggle the independent variable. He's saying it's a defined term, you do. Now looking at the question I posed to him about plants, this is the main one that I want to focus on. And my reply to him, I said, you certainly don't have to wiggle the independent variable, i.e., this was all one question, plant experiments that deal with light in relation to plant growth. You don't have to remove the sun from the experiment. You remove the plant away from the sunlight to see if it affects the dependent variable / the effect it has on the plant. His reply is you cannot perform any experiments on plant growth anymore. Why, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? It's called botany, plant biology, the study and experiments of plants. So and he's saying any more. Well, where's your citation, mate? You can't just, these are just silly, baseless assertions that these guys come up with. So he has gone on to say it is experimentally verified that plant growth is a correlative of at least 4 different factors. Light, heat, nutrients, and moisture content are the 4 correlative factors in growing plants. Yeah, it is. But those are your variables. Those are your controlled variables. These are the variables we don't change. We only have one variable. So he's just talking a whole lot of gobbledygook here. So I've got a storyboard here that Sleeping Warrior should be able to understand. And the basic question is, I wonder if a plant will grow bigger in the sunlight opposed to the shade. Okay, so we conduct an experiment. We plant one in the shade, one in the sunlight. Bang! What do you know? The one in the sunlight grows higher. Now, Anthony's issue with this is that there's too many variables. I don't think there is. He's just making stuff up. But we can also replicate this in a controlled environment. Just have a quick look at this experiment here on video. So we can replicate this experiment in a controlled environment by controlling the other variables. The only variable we need to change is the independent variable, the presumed cause, which is sunlight intensity. So as we can see in this experiment here, everything else is controlled. The nutrients, the water, the heat, all those variables are controlled. So they're all the same. The only thing different is the light intensity. So this experiment is using modern equipment, different light spectrums. Okay, is that not allowed because it's not natural science, it's man-made devices? No, I don't think so, because we can replicate the sun perfectly. The amount of lumens, the light spectrum, everything. Intensity, we can do all of that. I can safely say that a low-ranking ex-flat earther has just demolished a high-ranking flat earth scientist. But this is what these high-ranking flat earthers do. They make assertions, they make these videos. New flat earthers, low-ranking flat earthers just believe them. Their research is listening to these guys without actually going off and doing the research themselves. So more misinformation, deception, deceiving, dishonesty from flat earthers. I'm sorry, Sleeping Warrior, you can reply in a video to this. If I've got anything wrong, let me know in the comment section. I'm quite happy to concede that I was wrong, but in this case, I don't think I am. Now before I go, I just quickly want to show you Bob the Science Guy, an actual real scientist, and I've clipped out a few portions of a video that he made. I'll leave the link down below about how the scientific method and how science actually works.
Scientific method is not a checklist. So if the scientific method isn't a checklist, what is it? Well, it's exactly what it says. It's a method. It's a process. Now, there are certain phases to the process, and here's a pretty good outline of the approach that the scientific method entails when looking at science. The first thing that you need to do is you need to ask a question and then propose an answer to your own question. That's called developing a hypothesis to explain what you see in your question. Now, the hypothesis can be based on a number of things. The first is an extension of pre-existing knowledge. But that's where the next phase of the scientific method comes into play. For example, we asked ourselves a question, we proposed an answer for it. If we assume that that answer is right, we should be able to use it to make a prediction. So, let's make a prediction based on our proposed answer. Now, the cool thing about making this prediction is that you've got to make a good prediction, one that will give you a yes or a no, depending on what you end up seeing in the next stage, which is test your prediction. Now, you can test your prediction in many ways. For example, you could make an observation. You could do an experiment. You could do a mathematical calculation. These are things that you define based on what your prediction is, and you design the test to give you the best possible answer, either yes or no. And this is the key to designing a good test. You have to have a yes or a no answer. It either matches your prediction or it doesn't match your prediction. The next step in the scientific method is something called peer review. Now, peer does not mean that it's just somebody that looks like me, that's my age, that's my nationality. The only requirement to be a peer is they need to have some expertise in the subject that I'm addressing. Okay, say you make it past peer review and you've got a good experiment that gives you a good yes or a no answer. You've collected your data. You've come to your conclusions. The next thing that you have to do is publish that. And I'll go out and reproduce your experiment. Blue Marble Science will go out and reproduce your experiment. Jaron and Bob Nodell will go out and reproduce your experiment. Actually, they probably won't. But in any event, other people can go out and try your experiment and see if they come up with the same findings you do. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. If they do, that supports your findings. If they don't, you have some explaining to do.
So we've just heard from an actual scientist about the many different ways to test a hypothesis. There's not one way. These guys think there's only one way to do science. They're just flat out wrong. So just to summarise, I actually believe real scientists over flat earth scientists. Now what I will say, I don't know of any other scientist that disagrees with this science. So if you like this video, consider hitting the subscribe button and we'll continue to debunk flat earth nonsense. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video.